Any disputes that arise, please report them in accordance with the competition rules. And can I have each side introduce the participating team members, please, attorneys and witnesses? And let's start with the plaintiff's team, Team U. And if someone can be the spokesperson for the team, I would appreciate it.
My name is Chanel Dawson, and I will be directing Carson Durst and crossing Blake Duncourt. I will also be doing the opening.
My name is Shania Slee. I will be directing Dakota Weirs, crossing Dr. Devin Williams, and I will be doing the closing argument.
My name is Sophia Milner. I will be directing Dr. Casey Rogers and crossing Skylar Weirs.
Is that all the team members? Yes. Do you wish to introduce your witnesses, or at this time for Team U? Can I have witness introductions?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Emma Ross Kelly, and I'm Dakota Weirs.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Ellie Anthony, and I will be Carson Durst.
Right, thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Whitney Winslow, and I will be Dr. Casey Rogers today.
All right, thank you very much. Can I have participants in Team Q introduce themselves, the attorneys first, and then I'll have the witnesses. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Tanish, and today I'll be directing Dr. Devin Williams, crossing Dr. Casey Rogers, as well as providing the opening statement and the closing argument. At this time, my co-counsel will introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the jury, and opposing counsel. My name is Alan Medved, and I will be directing Skylar Weirs in crossing Dakota Weirs.
Good morning, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Sam Zeppelin, and I'll be directing Blake Doncourt and crossing Carson Durst. And now we're going to have our witnesses introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Manon, and I'm going to be Blake Doncourt.
Good morning. My name is Daniel, and I'm Skylar Weirs.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Faith, and I'm Dr. Devin Williams.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate the introductions. And at this time, I'm going to start by swearing in team members, please. Could you please raise your right hands? Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truly conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to swear the witnesses. Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truly conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? Thank you so much. You can lower your hands. Anybody who's in the gallery and who's listening to the proceedings, I'm going to swear gallery members, but obviously I can't see the gallery members, but my expectation is that you can hear me. Gallery members, including teacher and attorney coaches, family members and friends, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? And I'm hearing a resounding yes, so thank you. All right, and then scoring panelists, finally, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I will.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. So are the teams ready to proceed at this time? And if I can have a thumbs up from all the team members, that'll tell me you're ready to go forward. All right, thank you. All right, and then next, any matters that need to be addressed before we start the proceeding? Can I have a spokesman for the plaintiff's team?
Morning. We ask that any time that we have left for the closing, we have time for a rebuttal.
All right, thank you. Your scorekeepers will let me know that. Anything else for Team U?
We just ask that our co-counsel be able to present the exhibits.
Yes. Anything further?
No, thank you.
All right, any pretrial matters for the defense Team Q?
Your Honor, the defense has 3 pretrial matters. The first one is just to confirm that once exhibits are shared on the screen, they are hidden from the jury until Your Honor has published them into evidence. Our second one is that if the situation arises, the defense would like to request the ability to confer with co-counsel via Zoom chat. And our final pretrial matter is that we request that co-counsel may present evidence.
All right, thank you. Any objections by the plaintiff to any of those requests?
No.
All right, we are all set. The court will allow those requests. And then at this time, are the parties ready for opening statements? All right, and then can I have opening statement by plaintiffs first, please? Go ahead.
This is a case about a girl named Dakota Weirs who developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from the defendant's fertilizing company, Lush Fertilizer Incorporated. The evidence will show that this company's #1 priority was making money, and you will see that this goal was at the expense of its employees and Dakota Weirs. I would like to thank the jury for taking time out of your days to help fulfill the constitutional right to a jury, listen to the evidence, and come to a decision. We would not be here today if it weren't a dispute, and I'm going to ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to resolve the disputed facts. But there are several facts that are not in dispute by anyone in this courtroom. It is not in dispute that the plaintiff, my client, Dakota Weirs, used the chemical Drufo while working at using Lush Fertilizer Incorporated's fertilizer. It is also not in dispute that this fertilizer manufactured by the defendant was in its unbaked form. Ms. Weirs had been accepted into Juilliard for piano, which is one of the greatest and prestigious performing arts schools. And it is also not in dispute that as a result of having lymphoma, she could not play piano at the level she had been and could no longer attend Juilliard. It is also not in dispute that she lost the only thing that connected her to her dead grandfather. What you just heard are facts that are not in dispute. If over the course of the trial you start to get confused, please go back to the things that are not in dispute to help clear things up. Dakota Weirs is a 20-year-old who loves to work outdoors. She loved working in landscaping. She also extremely enjoys playing piano and was quite good at it. Lush makes fertilizer, and before using Drufo, learned about it through the research of its employees. It did not take into account all of the research. You will hear testimony and even see an email about its money-making #1 priority. But ultimately, it's manufactured its money-making fertilizer utilizing unbaked Drufo. Lush Fertilizer Incorporated will likely explain that Drufo will protect the planet by reducing the amount of nitrates that found their way into streams and lakes. This may be true, but will utilizing Drufo needlessly risk the lives of their consumers and employees? Today, we will hear from Dakota Weirs, Carson Durst, and our expert, Dr. Casey Rogers. From defense, you will hear from Blake Duncourt, the CEO of Lush, and experts Skylar Weirs and Dr. Devin Williams. At the end of our case, the evidence will show that Lush knew Drufo was dangerous, that its consumers, including Dakota Weirs, could, and in this case, did get very sick. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge will tell you the law you must use. Among these things, you will hear that the plaintiff's burden to prove her case, and we must do so with a standard called the preponderance of evidence. This means that it is more likely than not. You will also be instructed that if a manufacturer of a product knows or should know that a product will be may be harmful in any way, they should use reasonable care to warn this user. The failure to do so is negligence. The defense will likely argue that their client put a warning label on the product. This is true, but you will hear testimony that a warning label is not enough. Protective clothing and masks are recommended. It does not warn to keep it warns to keep the product out of contact with eyes, not with skin. They will also argue that Dakota had been working with other fertilizers and had been doing other things that could have caused this horrible disease. But there is one crucial difference. The other companies did not use Drufo. At the end of this case, we are going to ask you to compensate Ms. Weers for her non-economic losses, including pain, suffering, and grief, all of which Ms. Weers will detail during her testimony. Dakota's life has been changed forever. She used fertilizer doing a job that she loved, and that fertilizer was made by Lush, who had information that it was dangerous and did not reasonably warn its consumers. Dakota spent days getting painful medical treatment, just not to attend the school of her dream, Juilliard, and to not do the one thing that kept her close to her beloved grandfather. At the end of the trial, we, on behalf of the plaintiff, Dakota Weers, are going to ask that you find that Lush was negligent and caused Ms. Weers injuries. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Defense opening, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name, once again, is Tanish Javeria, and I'm representing the defense in this case, along with my co-counsel. Lush Fertilizers has been falsely accused of practicing negligence in the development and distribution of their acclaimed and revolutionary fertilizers containing Drufo. Drufo is a chemical which has been developed by Lush Fertilizers as the solution towards creating more environmentally friendly fertilizers. Accusations don't equal truth. Don't reward misinformation. The facts of this case are straightforward. The evidence will go to show that Lush Fertilizer, nor any purported negligence by them, are the cause for Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and that their product, Drufo, has benefits that outweigh any plausible drawbacks. First, the plaintiff will call 3 witnesses. The plaintiff, Dakota Weir's, who failed to follow safety precautions written on every product distributed by Lush Fertilizers. Then they will call upon Carson Durst, who will talk to us about how he failed to oblige with a non-compete agreement. After that, we will have Dr. Casey Rogers come and tell us about the study, which he arguably was not qualified to conduct. After that, the defense themselves will call 3 witnesses, Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer since 2000, Skylar Weers, the very own twin of the plaintiff, an avid investigative journalist who has written numerous pieces regarding the conflict between individual health and corporate policy, as well as Drufo and modern agritech. And finally, Dr. Devin Williams, the head of the Toxicology Research and Development Labs at Lush Fertilizers and the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee. First, Blake Doncourt will tell us about Lush Fertilizers' choices and explain the data behind those choices. Then, Skylar Weers will discuss the research she has seen regarding Drufo and the lack of a correlation between exposure to Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Finally, Dr. Devin Williams will talk about the effects of Drufo and the studies conducted regarding a correlation between exposure to Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma. This is a civil case, and the plaintiff, Dakota Weers, must prove her case by a preponderance of the evidence. This means that the burden of evidence is on the plaintiff and that they must prove to you, the jury, that there's more than a 50% chance that Drufo caused Dakota Weers non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Though it is a horrible tragedy, the plaintiff's sickness is unrelated to Drufo. Rather than Drufo, Dakota Weers' non-Hodgkin lymphoma was caused by other circumstances. And because of these unfortunate circumstances and poor research by certain bad actors, Lush Fertilizer is being falsely accused. For these reasons, after you've heard all of the testimonies and seen all of the evidence, at the end of this trial, we will ask you to return a verdict in favor of Lush Fertilizers. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. The court asked the plaintiff to call their first witness.
The plaintiff calls Dakota Weers to stand.
Thank you.
Miss Weers, please
Go ahead,
state and spell your last name, jury.
My name is Dakota Weers, W-E-I-R-S.
And why are you in court today?
I am here today to sue Lush Fertilizer because their products made me sick and they've blatantly ignored the safety of their customers.
I see. And could you tell the jury a little bit about what your life was like before you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Of course. Before I was diagnosed, I was a very active member in my community. I worked at the local homeless shelter, cooking meals, cleaning dishes, and just being involved with the less fortunate members in my community. I was a part of my school's National Honor Society and was president of my school's student government. I worked very hard to set myself apart and get good grades.
What would you say is the most devastating thing you've lost because of your illness?
Well, I love playing the piano, and I worked very hard at it. I started playing the piano to become close to my grandfather.
Would you be willing to tell the jury a little bit more about why losing the ability to play the piano was so heartbreaking to you?
Yes. I think I started to play the piano to become closer to my grandfather, as he was an accomplished pianist. And he taught me everything that I learned. And he passed away when I was 7, and my love for the piano grew because of that, because it made me feel closer to him.
Before you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, what were you planning on doing with the rest of your life?
Well, after my grandfather passed, my parents put me into piano lessons, and I excelled. I played in many recitals and even won some competitions, and I was awarded a full ride scholarship to Juilliard in New York City, which was my dream. But in my condition, I fear I can never pursue such a career in piano.
What are some symptoms you've been dealing with?
Well, I started feeling sick all the time. My abdomen would swell to twice its normal size, and I would have rapid weight loss and fatigue and chest pains and constant chills. I often had swollen lymph nodes, which were quite painful. And then later, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Ms. Weers, why do you believe that Lush fertilizer is responsible for your illness?
Well, I was laying on the couch and I saw a story about Lush and its key ingredient, Drufo. Symptoms had been leaked, saying the fertilizer had lied about the safety of Drufo, knowing it could cause cancer. I knew I had been using Drufo at my job, Haven Landscaping, which I had been working at since I was 14. I was in charge of spreading the seed and fertilizer since I was not old enough to work the machinery, and I knew I had used Lush fertilizer in my job.
May my co-counsel please pull up Exhibit 1?
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Weers, do you recognize what is being shown to you in this document?
Yes, it is the packaging label of Lush fertilizer that I used at my job.
And has it been changed or altered in any way?
No.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Is there any objection to the admission of Exhibit 1?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit 1 is admitted. Go ahead, counsel.
Could you read the user safety recommendations out loud to the jury?
Yeah. As with any fertilizer, utilize protective clothing that covers its use of a respirator N95 is recommended. No manufacturers for cleaning/maintaining personal equipment. Users should wash hands before and after use of this product.
Use of a respirator or N95 face mask is recommended, however, not required. Based on this knowledge, what kind of safety measures did you take?
Well, I worked during the summer and it was very hot, so I wore a t-shirt and shorts, as did the rest of the company. If I had known that this product could cause cancer, I would have done things differently.
Thank you. Co-counsel, you may stop screen sharing. Now, Dakota, do you recognize anyone in this courtroom today?
Yes, my twin, Skylar.
Who is on the opposing side? Could you explain why you believe that they're opposing you?
I believe it is because of Skylar's previous gambling. She is in gambling debt, and when my father started to shoulder my medical bills instead of her gambling debts, things started to take a turn for the worse, and she told me that our money in the estate would run out after our father passed.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination,
Yes, Your Honor.
go ahead.
So you've worked as a landscaping technician since 14
Yes, I have.
for Haven Landscaping,
Yes.
and you worked outside and inside.
Yes, I did.
And some of those places were hot.
Yes.
And your boss told you to wear short sleeves.
No.
But that's what you said in your statement.
I never said that.
Regardless, you chose not to wear short sleeves or long sleeves.
No, I did wear short sleeves.
You did. And you didn't wear any protection.
Can you repeat the question?
Sorry. Your boss told
No,
you
I did not.
to wear, okay. Your boss told you to wear long sleeves,
You did.
which you chose not to do,
Yes.
despite what your boss told you.
Yes.
And you didn't wear protection.
No.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Response,
The plaintiff asked me to repeat the question, so I did.
all right, overruled. Go ahead with your questions.
And you didn't wear protection.
No, I did not.
And in your statement, you mentioned that there was no warning,
Yes, there is no warning.
but there is. It warns you to wear a face mask and long sleeves.
It is said as a recommendation.
So you were informed that you should be wearing these things.
Can you repeat that?
So you were informed that you should be wearing a face mask and long sleeves,
Yes.
and you chose not to.
Yes.
But you are suing Lush for a negligence claim.
Yes, I am.
But couldn't you say that you were the negligent one?
No, I would not say that.
Really, because it seems to me that you ignored your warnings.
It was not a warning, only a recommendation.
All right. Moving on. During this time, you worked in a variety of different locations.
Yes, I did.
Inside and outside.
Yes.
And with a variety of different fertilizers.
Yes.
Not just Lush.
No, not just.
And you mentioned that some had warning labels not to be used indoors.
Yes, some of them did.
And you often use this product indoors.
That is not in my witness statement, whether or not I use.
You mentioned in your witness statement that sometimes you used some of these other fertilizers indoors.
Yes, I worked indoors.
And these other fertilizers are dangerous if used without protection.
Yes.
And you started to feel sick after working for Haven after several years.
Yes.
But Haven stopped using Lush after 3 or 4 years on the job.
Yes.
And yet you were still sick.
Yes.
So you cannot be 100% certain that Lush specifically caused your illness.
I am pretty sure it is Lush fertilizer.
But you are not 100% certain.
I am certain.
All right, no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. This witness is excused. Can I have the next witness, please?
The plaintiff calls Carson Durst to the stand.
Mr. Durst, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead with your questions.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you.
Could you please state your full name and spell the last?
I am Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
And what is your current occupation?
I am currently the lead product developer for Terra's Greenery.
And what is Terra's Greenery?
Terra's Greenery is a fertilizing company. They are one of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated's biggest competitors.
And could you please explain why you're here today?
I'm here to testify against Lush Fertilizer Incorporated. I believe that they harmed Dakota Weirs, and I want to make sure that they are held accountable for what they did.
And when did you start working at Terra's Greenery?
I started working at Terra's Greenery in 2006 after I was fired from Lush Fertilizer.
And I'm going to ask you a few questions about how you came across Lush Fertilizer. So how did you find out about it?
I was best friends with Charles Duncourt, and I couldn't find a post-graduation job, so I complained about it to Charlie. Since we grew up together and we were best friends, he told me about this internship with Lush Fertilizer. He told me that Blake, his dad, could probably pull some strings for me, so I applied for an internship at Lush Fertilizer.
And you talk about being best friends with Charles. Just to get a better perspective on how close you two were, how long did you guys know each other for?
We were both on the same soccer team together when we were just little kids. I had Sunday dinners with them, went to their lake house in the summers. We were inseparable. We then went to Arizona State University together.
And earlier you had mentioned that Charles thought Blake could pull some strings for you to get an internship at Lush Fertilizer. Whatever happened with that internship?
I ended up getting the internship right away. I moved in the ranks quickly, and within 3 months, I was promoted to a full-time position as a product development engineer. It was rumored that the only reason I got the promotion was because I was so close with the family, but I assure you that was not the case. I just was working at a higher level than more experienced engineers.
Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about your specific works at Lush. So with that new internship that you had received, what did Lush have you working on?
I was assigned to work on developing a patented bonding agent called Drufo. Lush Fertilizer Incorporated started developing the chemical in 2001. When I arrived there in 2003, Lush Fertilizer Incorporated was testing the safety of Drufo.
And could you just describe what Drufo is?
Drufo is a patent bonding. This is what Lush Fertilizer Incorporated uses in their fertilizer in its unbaked form.
And what kind of research did Lush Fertilizer Incorporated do on the chemical Drufo?
They did in-house research studies. One of the studies that I had to do was on rats in England. I documented everything down in my notebook, but I didn't see any problems that could have on humans.
Could you describe what Lush Fertilizer Incorporated did with your research?
A guy named Jerry Langley would check everyone's notebooks on a regular basis. He would put all of this information onto one page and send it to the senior manager.
And other than what you had described, what else did Lush Fertilizer Incorporated do to research the product?
Well, I got word from a higher up that we were doing another in-house study. This time it was on whether or not Drufo was carcinogenic in humans. We then received an email that wasn't completely clear, so we had a meeting.
Could my co-counsel present Exhibit 4, please?
Yes.
And Carson, do you recognize this email?
I do.
And has it been altered or changed in any way?
It has not.
And what is this email?
This was an email that was sent to me, Blake Duncourt, and a couple others from Jerry Langley.
Your Honor, I move to enter Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 4 is admitted without objection. Go ahead, counsel.
I want to direct you to the exhibit. Did anything strike you as abnormal based on your experience regarding the meetings?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
You're okay. Did anything strike you as abnormal based on your experience regarding the meetings and any documents generated related to the meetings?
No.
Objection, Your Honor.
Response?
I'm sorry, what was the objection?
The objection was leading.
I will move on.
Okay. Go ahead.
Earlier you had mentioned, I'm sorry, could you please read the first sentence of paragraph 2 for me, please?
Yes. Following our lab's gene Drufo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during this period early in the year. So we are reinitiating the study in the coming weeks with fresh product samples.
Thank you. And co-counsel can start presenting the exhibit. Thank you. And earlier you had mentioned that there were meetings. Was there anything that was discussed?
Yes, everyone, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. Earlier you had mentioned that there were meetings about this email. What was discussed in this meeting?
It was our findings that was discussed.
And what were your findings?
I'm sorry, I had a glitch there. Can you repeat that?
Of course. What did you find out about Drufo in your new findings?
Okay, sorry. Scientific research that was found determined that Drufo was not also carcinogenic or cancer causing to humans, but that it may be linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And after everyone in the conference had heard that Drufo may be linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, what was the reaction?
A guy named Alex Monroe was sitting in the conference room when this was said, and he replied with, "Let's keep it in the walls until we figure out what we're doing."
And could you describe what additional research Lush did based upon the conclusion relating to lymphoma in humans?
Yes. About a month or so later, a report was set on my desk. It concluded that, on average, our statistics and distribution are below what is required by law. The mean data is within 3 standard deviations from the applicable federal standards. Further analysis is required before we are able to make any conclusions regarding the likelihood of the chemical compound at issue causing any long-term health effects, including cancer.
And what in the report suggested on how to fix this?
It was said to bake Drufo so that the possibility of Drufo being carcinogenic was eliminated.
And did Lush ever bake Drufo?
Not that I recall.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mrs. Sturz.
Morning.
So just to clarify, you initially got hired to work at Lush Fertilizer in 2003. Is that correct?
Yes.
And prior to finding employment, you knew the Doncourt family very well.
Oh, yes.
From a young age, you guys went on trips, had dinners, and even carpooled together to soccer practice.
Yeah, we were inseparable.
You were very good friends with Charles Doncourt. You're inseparable, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
And you were friends with Charles throughout your education at Arizona State University.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty safe to say that you, on some level, do have connections in Lush Fertilizer.
Yes.
And when you graduated college, you were looking for a job, is that correct?
Yeah.
And even though you were actively looking for a job, you had quite bad luck finding a job.
Yes, that is correct.
And once you told Charles about your misfortunes, he said that his father, Blake, could pull some strings for you. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you told Charles that, he responded by saying that once Blake pulled those strings for you, you started off as a summer intern.
Yep.
And 3 months later, when you started that internship, you ended up getting a promotion to a full-time product development engineer.
Yes, I was a very hard worker.
Only 3 months, Mrs. Durst. That is a very fast promotion.
Like I said, I was a very hard worker.
So you said that you believe those promotions were justified due to your higher performance level,
Yes.
but not a lot of your coworkers believe the same. Is that true?
Yeah, but there always were rumors in any workplace.
So most of your coworkers believe that your promotion was solely due to your connections. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Ms. Durst, to your knowledge, has any other employee at Lush Fertilizer risen through the ranks at your speed?
Not that I know of.
Okay, Ms. Durst, let's talk about Drufo. So you said that Drufo is a high value product for Lush Fertilizer. Is that correct?
Yes.
But you were not a part of Drufo's research and development team, or development team, sorry.
No, I was not.
Although you weren't a part of the development team, you were a part of the research and testing stages of Drufo before it hit the market.
Yes.
And your role was to look at Drufo's compounds to ensure that Lush Fertilizer's customers were not adversely affected by Drufo. Is that correct?
Yes, that is.
Ms. Durst, would you say that you would have ensured that any studies that you conducted throughout your time at Lush Fertilizers were viable and credible?
Yes.
And would you ensure that all the studies that you were a part of were scientifically accurate and thorough?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We can talk about your research results now. So you did, in fact, while you're researching Drufo's compounds, find one credible, scientifically conducted test. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
And that test yielded results about some of Drufo's chemical compounds.
Yes.
That one study that some of Drufo's chemical compounds, that study found that some of Drufo's chemical compounds may result in adverse effects in rats. Is that true?
Yeah, that is.
And that was the only study that you found.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's talk about how your employment at Lush Fertilizer came to an end, Ms. Durst. So you are currently not working at Lush Fertilizer, just to clarify, right?
Yes, I'm working at Terra's Greenery.
Okay, and were you aware that throughout your employment at Lush Fertilizer, copious amounts of complaints regarding your work performance were filed?
I did.
And were you aware that these complaints stated that you weren't pulling your weight and that you were just skating along?
Yes, I was.
And Mrs. Sturz, after those complaints were filed, is it true that you had a confrontation with the executive team and you were put on a probationary status?
That is correct.
Mrs. Sturz, from that point on, did your job performance improve?
I would say so, yes.
Well, actually, it did not, because from that point on, your performance didn't improve, and that probationary status triggered another poor performance review, which then prompted you to have a confrontation with Blake Doncourt. And at that confrontation with Blake Doncourt, did you ask him about your coworker, Jerry, one of the main people who filed those complaints?
I did.
And is it true that Mr. Doncourt did not involve himself in your feud?
That is correct.
And Mr. Durst, after that conversation with Blake, is it true that you applied for a job at Terra Greeneries?
Yes, that is correct.
Terra Greenery, Lush Fertilizer's direct competitor.
Mm-hmm.
Were you aware at the time that Terra Greenery was Lush Fertilizer's direct competitor?
I was.
Were you aware that this was a violation of a clause in your non-compete?
I was not.
You were not.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Were you aware at the time that getting employed with Lush Fertilizer's direct competitor while still working at Lush Fertilizer was in violation of your non-compete?
I was not. I did not remember of the contract that I had signed until after I was going to be hired for Paris Green.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, but Your Honor, counsel requests permission to publish Exhibit 4 to the jury. I don't believe it was previously done.
Yes. So
Okay.
my understanding, you're done with the witness, but you wish to publish Exhibit 4?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the jury is able to see it.
Okay. Granted. And you're
Thank you, Your Honor.
completed your cross, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Redirect? Ms. Dawson?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, if there's no redirect, there will not be any recross. Excuse me, Mr. Durst, you're excused. Plaintiff's next witness, please.
The plaintiff would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
All right, thank you. Can I have Dr. Rogers, please? Dr. Rogers, can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead with your questions, counsel.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the jury.
My name is Dr. Casey Rogers, Rogers.
And what school are you currently employed at?
I am currently employed at the University of California, Berkeley as a professor in the horticulture and entomology department.
And what qualifications do you have to work at University of California, Berkeley?
I have a PhD in entomology and agriculture from UC Berkeley and a Bachelor of Science in chemistry from Colorado State University.
Do you have any publications?
Yes, I have numerous published studies on chemicals and the harmful effects that they have on the body due to prolonged exposure.
Could my co-counsel please show Exhibit 7?
Yes. And who are we asking to share Exhibit 7?
Okay, there we go.
All right,
Sorry. Thank you.
no problem. Go ahead.
Okay. So what is this exhibit, Dr. Rogers?
This is a list of my research publications.
And does this accurately show your publications?
Yes, it does.
Has it been altered in any way?
No, it has not.
I would like to move to enter the Exhibit 7 as an exhibit, please.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 7 is admitted without objection. Go ahead, counsel.
Can you read your publications that pertain to Drufo?
Yes. In 2019, survey reveals frequency of multiple resistance Drufo from weed biology. In 2013, Drufo was resistant weeds in evolutionary sciences. In 2019, the evidence of human exposure to Drufo, a review in the Environmentalist, and 2017, Drufo toxicity and carcinogenity, a review of the scientific basis of the European Union assessment in biotechnology information.
Co-counsel, you can now take down Exhibit 7. So what other jobs have you done in this profession?
Well, I have advised companies and other regulatory agencies on harmful chemicals and like protective measures that they could take to reduce the risk of those chemicals. And I've also worked as an analyst for a multinational chemical company that I can't disclose. It's I have a non-disclosure agreement with them.
Your Honor, I would like to enter Dr. Rogers as an expert witness in entomology, agriculture, horticulture, and chemistry.
Any objection?
Your Honor, the defense requests a voir dire.
You can have a brief voir dire of the expert. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Dr. Rogers, you were a research analyst for a confidential company, according to your CV,
Yes, I was.
and you identified and synthesized data.
Yes, I did.
And your education includes a bachelor from Colorado State University and a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley.
Yes, it does.
And your current research interests are pesticide chemistry and toxicology, metabolism and mode of action of organic toxicants, and insect biochemistry.
Yes.
Great. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. And based upon your voir dire, the plaintiff is seeking to admit this witness as an expert. Is there any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right. The witness is admitted as an expert in the areas in which the plaintiff identified. Go ahead with your questioning, counsel, Ms. Milner.
Thank you. How common is non-Hodgkin lymphoma due to exposure to Drufo?
Dakota is definitely not the first person who has non-Hodgkin lymphoma from Drufo, and she definitely won't be the last. I think that this case will open up at least a class action lawsuit against the company.
And can you tell me about your study involving Drufo?
Yes, I had a study based on the exposure to Drufo. There were 3 groups: a control group who had no exposure to Drufo, a group who had occasional exposure to Drufo, and a final group who had prolonged exposure to Drufo. My study found that the group with prolonged exposure to Drufo were 10 times more likely to develop cancer, and that included non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And the group who had occasional use of Drufo were 5 times more likely to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma and other cancers due to exposure.
Could you explain what non-Hodgkin lymphoma is?
Non-Hodgkin lymphoma is a cancer that attacks the tissue of the body through white blood cells called lymphocytes, which are a part of the lymph system. And this system is crucial to the immune system. And also there are 4 stages of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, the first being the least damaging and the 4th being the worst.
And is it easy to recover from non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
There's a 72% 5-year survival rate for non-Hodgkin lymphoma. However, you can't really recover from non-Hodgkin lymphoma. You can reduce your symptoms, control them, but you don't have any way of stopping it. It can always come back.
And how can someone develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
Non-Hodgkin lymphoma is environmental, so it happens through absorption of the skin or breathing, like through the lungs. And something harmful enters the body, it reproduces, or it starts to damage the cells, the white blood cells, and then they start to metastasize cancerous cells, and then it causes the cancer.
And what group in your study had an increase in serious health conditions?
The farmers and gardeners, those were the ones who had prolonged exposure to Drufo.
And would you say that Weir's level of exposure related to the groups in your study?
Yes, I would say it was very similar, as she worked with Drufo often, given that it was her after school and summer job.
And what is the most common way of getting exposed to Drufo?
Through the skin or through the lungs.
And what recommendations are there that should be taken to reduce exposure to Drufo?
I would say that one should wear a mask, like an N95 mask, and long sleeves and long pants, just for protection of the skin.
What requirements or warnings are there for users of Lush fertilizer on the label?
There were no requirements. There were the recommendation for protective equipment.
And how many of Lush's products include Drufo?
All of them.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Javeria.
Good morning, Ms. Rogers.
Good morning.
Let's begin with your financial bias or incentive. Dr. Rogers, you wish for there to be a class action lawsuit, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you hope to be a part of that lawsuit?
Yes, as I think I've done lots of good studies on Drufo and the effects of them.
Dr. Rogers, I believe you'd only conducted 1 study.
Yes, but I've also done a lot of research on Drufo.
Okay. And moving back to my point on financial bias, you stand to gain financially from being an expert witness.
I do. I'm compensated fairly for my time and research that I've done on this topic.
So it is fair to say that you stand to gain from a class action lawsuit as a whole.
Yes, I do financially, but also I gain in helping people who have been affected by this fertilizer.
Okay, let's move on to the credibility of your study. You conducted a study regarding the effects of Drufo,
Yes, I did.
and your study is the only one to have found such results.
Yes,
And your
know.
study compares farm laborers to gardeners to people who never experienced exposure to Drufo.
Yes, as most studies have levels of exposure and
Okay, and your study found exactly what you wanted to find?
I mean, yes, but as it was expected, I did an observational study finding people with non-Hodgkin lymphoma.
So that's a yes.
Yes, it is.
And your study is not peer reviewed.
No, it's not. There wasn't enough time.
Okay, let's move on. You said that non-Hodgkin's is caused by absorption through the skin or breathing intoxicants.
Yeah, it is.
So Dakota Weirs could have reduced any impact of using lush fertilizers by following the warning labels that were placed on the products.
She could have, but reasonably so, like she wouldn't know that those things are risks.
So that's a yes once again.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and you also stated that Dakota Weirs that there's no requirement on the labels, correct?
There is none.
Yet there's no way for a company to require anybody to do anything, is there?
I guess there's not.
So a recommendation or a warning would be the utmost a company can do.
I mean, sure, yes.
Objection, Your Honor. I would say that this line of question is out of my witness's expertise.
Response.
Well, Your Honor, it's simply establishing a sort of an opinion in general because the witness mentioned that there was no requirement and there was only a recommendation.
And the witness was asked questions about those areas on direct. The court's going to overrule the objection and allow the questions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's move on, Ms. Rogers. Your research currently specializes in insect biochemistry.
Yes, it does.
As well as the metabolism and mode of action of organic toxicants.
Yes.
And you currently teach courses on herbicides and horticultural entomology?
I do.
Great. Herbicides are extremely different in comparison to fertilizers, aren't they?
Yes, they are, but I'd say they're in the same, area.
So once again, that's a yes.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
And as a research analyst, you worked on assisting clients with compiling research and developing products rather than actively researching them.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. Compound question.
Sustained. I'm going to have him break that down. Counsel,
Okay.
you can break that down into two questions, please, or
Thank you, Your Honor.
compound.
Thank you, Your Honor. So as a research analyst, you worked on assisting clients with compiling research.
Yes.
And developing products.
Yes, I did.
Rather than actively researching them?
Yes, but I've also done numerous research studies now.
So prior to conducting your study on Drufo, you had no experience in actively conducting research.
No.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to one final point. You say that Drufo's rushed arrival to the market is what led you to conduct your study?
Yes.
So your study began around 2003?
Yes, it did.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time, let the record reflect that opposing counsel has been provided with a copy of Exhibit 3.
Thank you.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense requests permission to screen share a copy of Exhibit 3.
Go ahead.
Opposing co-counsel, can you please share Exhibit 3? Thank you. Ms. Rogers, is this a copy of the study that you say motivated you to conduct your research on Drufo?
Yes.
Is it a true and correct copy?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves to have this admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Exhibit 7. Excuse me. What's the number of this exhibit?
Exhibit 3, Your Honor.
Right. The court admits Exhibit 3 without objection.
Permission to publish virtually, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So moving back to my line of questioning, Ms. Rogers, you claim that the knowledge that drufa was carcinogenic in rats is what further motivated you to undertake this study?
Yes.
Yet this specific study wasn't published for more than 3 years after drufa was first introduced to the market in 2003.
Yes.
So are you saying that that this study motivated you to undertake it in the first place, or that this study was simply published after?
Objection, Your Honor. Compound question.
I'll break it down. No response, Your Honor. So you're saying that, are you saying that this study was the first thing that motivates you to undertake this study, to undertake your study?
Yes, I am.
Yet how did you do that if this study was published after drufa was, like, more than 3 years after drufa was first introduced to the market?
I guess I just saw this study and it motivated me.
But you began your study, considering the fact that you say that you began it right after drufa was rushed to the market. You say that you began your study then. So how exactly did that happen?
Objection, Your Honor. Compound question.
Oh my.
I'm going to allow the question. The question was not compound. It was just a follow through. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. So once again, restating my question, you stated that you began your study right after drufa was rushed to the market, but this study was published 3 years after, correct?
Correct.
So how is it that this is what motivated you in the first place, Dr. Rogers?
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Overruled. I don't need a response. You didn't get to ask the question before, and you're just completing it now. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can the witness answer the question?
Yes, I'm not sure this is in my witness statement. I don't know how I would have done that. So.
Your Honor, at this point, the defense has no further questions.
All right. Any redirect? Ms. Milner?
No, Your Honor.
All right. There's no redirect. There will not be any recross. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Does the plaintiff rest their case?
Yes, we do, Your Honor.
All right. And is the defense prepared to call their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who does the defense call as their first witness?
1 second, Your Honor. I apologize.
Could you let the court know who the defense is calling as their first witness?
Yes. The defense would like to call Blake Doncourt to the stand, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. You're muted. Could you unmute yourself, please?
Sorry.
No worries. Go ahead.
I do.
You've been sworn. I know you heard, and I just
Yeah.
Mr.
Yes,
is it Mr. Zeppelin?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead with your first question.
Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Doncourt. Ms. Doncourt, can you please state your name and spell it out for the jury?
Yes, Blake Doncourt, DONCOURTT.
Okay, Ms. Doncourt, can you please tell the jury a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Lush Fertilizer. We provide a variety of cutting-edge fertilizers to the market. I'm also super passionate about the issues involving the environment at Lush Fertilizer. I'm super proud to announce that 10% of my business profits go towards charities.
Ms. Doncourt, have you been recognized for these donations?
Yes, I was nominated by the United Nations as the Champion of the Earth in 2020.
Ms. Doncourt, you said you were the current CEO of Lush Fertilizer. How long have you held this position?
I've been acting CEO for about 20 years, since 2000.
And Ms. Doncourt, since you've been CEO at Lush Fertilizer, have any of your products, besides the one in question today, been accused of being unsafe?
No, not at all. Lush Fertilizer, we take immense pride in both the development and the testing processes of our products before they even hit the market.
Can you elaborate on that, jury, on that for the jury, please, Ms. Doncourt?
Yeah, So if any of the products at any stage do yield scientifically accurate and sound data that does state that our product is harmful to the humans or environment at all, that harmful variation of the product will never be released to the market. It's our safety net to ensure that our products will not hurt anybody.
Great, thank you, Ms. Doncourt. And do you know what product is being in question today?
Yes, Lush fertilizer is being accused of being harmful.
And has this product also been through the intensive process or the safety net that you just mentioned before it was put onto the market?
Absolutely. All of our products do that. Drufo has been intensely researched and tested before it even hit the market. We even worked closely with the EPA just to ensure that our products did not cause any environmental damages and that they were being correctly and safely used by our customers.
Ms. Doncourt, can you please clarify for the jury what the EPA is?
Yeah, the EPA is the United States Environmental Protection Agency.
Thank you. And would you say that all of these precautionary measures are necessary?
110%. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if our products did cause any harm to any of our customers.
Ms. Doncourt, are you aware of any of the accusations that have been targeted towards Lush Fertilizer's product, Drufo?
Yes, these so-called scientists have thrown allegations around that Drufo is dangerous. However, I've yet to see any actual scientifically sound proof.
Ms. Doncourt, you said scientifically soundproof. Can you elaborate on that a bit, please?
Yes, there has been no certified published scientific journals nor any official studies with actual professionals, just money-hungry vultures who saw an opportunity of a vulnerable company and swooped in for some scraps.
Ms. Doncourt, you seem to have some pretty strong feelings about these fashioned allegations.
Of course I do. Lush Fertilizer is a company that I have nurtured for the past 20 years. They are my baby. These sellouts are trying to slander our company's reputation.
In what ways, Ms. Doncourt, have those who have made these allegations attempted to slander Lush Fertilizer's reputation?
Honestly, it really seems like they're just blindfolding themselves, throwing a dart at a board, and what their orchestrated attack seems to have landed on was a claim that we dismissed the baking products of our fertilizers in bad faith.
In bad faith, can you please elaborate on that, Ms. Doncourt?
They're saying that we choose to mitigate losses rather than protecting our customers.
Ms. Doncourt, do you know approximately the amount of losses that Lush Fertilizer would have incurred if the baking process was implemented?
Yeah, I'm very open about it. In 2003, I created a chart talking about just how much our company loses on baking products. And through my own calculations, the company would have decreased profits by 6% in the first year and then an additional 2% in the following years.
Okay, Your Honor, let the record reflect that the opposing counsel has previously been provided with a copy of Exhibit 8. Your Honor, asking permission to share a copy of Exhibit 8.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Ms. Doncourt, without going into its contents, can you identify and confirm that this is an accurate and authentic copy?
Yes, that is the accurate copy. And this is the chart I made in 2003 regarding the profits that Lush does not bake our product. This is something businesses just don't disclose at all due to the competition. And this doesn't show the amount of hours of my research team did on Drufo, making sure that it is the safest that it can possibly be.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, we offer Exhibit 8 into evidence. Its authenticity and accuracy has been shown. We also are asking permission to publish Exhibit 8 to the jury.
Any objection from the plaintiff?
No objections, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit A is admitted without objection and will be published to the jury. Go ahead, counsel.
So, Ms. Doncourt, although the baking process does result in some losses, those do seem mitigable. So why doesn't Lush Fertilizer decide to bake the products?
Well, as we know, without the baking process, Drufo does have some level of potential harm on rats. But those levels were so low that Lush didn't find that the baking process was the coherent choice.
Ms. Doncourt, you said that the levels were so low and that the potential for harm was so minimal. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Plenty of things contain some level of harmful content or risk. We don't put warning labels on apples and they contain some traces of cyanide.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Doncourt. let's move on. I'd like to talk about Dakota Weirs. What's your opinion about Dakota?
I do genuinely hope all the best for Dakota, and I'm so sorry that they got taken advantage of by people like Carson, who see this case only as a way to put Lush Fertilizer down while promoting his current employer, Terra Greenery, and their new products that they stole from my company.
Thank you. And you mentioned Carson Durst. Can you also speak to your relationship with him?
Carson Durst was an employee of Lush Fertilizer in the research and development team. He was fired and then, from what I hear, began to work for Terra's Greenery. Ironically, also from what I hear, they have in the past cut costs on their production workers and lack of ethics there in general. Honestly, I'm severely offended by this highly paid so-called professional, aka criminal.
Can you elaborate on that, please, Ms. Doncourt?
Well, Terra Greenery is suspiciously coming out with a fertilizer that is quite similar to ours, except stating that it's safer and carcinogenic free. I won't be surprised if Carson violated his NDA by making this product and then using poor Dakota to justify, more like cover up, his activity, as Carson did sign our ironclad non-disclosure agreement, which I'm planning on suing him for. He had been accused before of breaching it.
Okay, Your Honor, let the record reflect the opposing counsel has previously been provided with a copy of Exhibit 8 and permission to share the screen with a copy of Exhibit 8.
Just to be clear, you're referencing Exhibit
5.
8?
I apologize, Your Honor.
Exhibit number 5?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Ms. Doncourt, without going into its contents, can you identify this?
Yes, this is the NDA that Carson and I signed and the one that he violated.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Doncourt. Your Honor, permission to publish Exhibit 5 to the jury.
Plaintiffs, any objection?
Yes, Your Honor. On relevance, I'm not sure exactly how Carson's agreement has anything to do with proving that Jufro was carcinogenic or not.
Response?
Well, this is really just a question of Carson's credibility. If he's willing to violate a non-disclosure agreement and steal company secrets, we're not really sure what he's willing to do and what his viability is as a scientist and as research development, a member of the team. So that's what the relevance is, Your Honor.
The court's going to not allow this exhibit, and it will not be allowed at this time. The reference to the non-compete will be weighed for whatever relevancy and admissibility, not admissibility, but relevance will be considered by the jury, but this exhibit will not be admitted. I'm going to sustain the objection. Go on, counsel.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Ms. Dawson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Duncourt. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions about your relationship with Carson Durst. So he was your son's best friend.
Yes.
And you helped him get a job at your family's fertilizing company?
He worked at the fertilizing company, yes.
And I'm sorry, I don't know if you understood my question or if I worded it weirdly.
Okay.
You helped him get a job at your family's fertilizing company?
He worked at my fertilizing company. As I said in my statement, he worked there and then he got fired.
I understand that he worked there, but did you help him get that job?
Everyone gets hired. He got hired. Nothing much to say about that.
Okay, moving on. So you and Lush Fertilizer would have wanted to do some extensive research on your fertilizer before putting it on the market?
100%. I'm an environmentalist. I give 10% of my profits away to charity. I'm not going to put something on the shelves that's going to harm someone.
And this is for the safety of families, corporations, and everyone that your product is put on?
Every single person.
And it is for the safety of anybody walking near those lawns?
It's for the safety of everyone, especially the ones using it.
Okay, and it's for the safety of anybody using the fertilizer, including your employees?
100%.
And for the safety of the entire community?
Yes.
And in this research, it presented no harm to humans that used your product.
It presented insignificant levels of toxicity.
But it didn't present any harms to humans.
It presented insignificant levels of toxicity.
So is that a yes or no?
It's
Objection, Your Honor. This question has already been asked and answered. We've already specified the results of the research and the reasons for not implementing the baking process.
Any response?
I'm just asking if it presented any harm. I'm not getting an answer of.
I believe in our direct examination, we already disclosed the amount of harm and that it was not considered a significant amount.
Overruled. Go ahead, Ms. Dawson, with your question. Can the witness answer the question?
I don't believe she did.
No, I'm telling the witness to answer your question.
I
The
apologize.
team found nothing in the product, so no.
Okay. Your Honor, I believe Exhibit 4 was already entered into evidence. May my co-counsel present Exhibit 4, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So your name is in the sent to box, correct?
Yes, along with the unread.
Along with the, I'm sorry, the what?
That says that it's unread.
Okay.
I did not read the email.
Okay. So Jerry Langley is a guy that puts everyone's research onto one paper, correct?
I did not read the email. So
I'm sorry, that's not my question about, my question is about the guy that it's from, and he puts all research onto one page, from my understanding.
the email is 1 page long, if that's the question.
So this is regarding people's research, not the email.
Okay.
So would you like me to ask the question again, or?
Yes.
Okay, Jerry Langley is a guy that puts everyone's research onto one page and send it to you, correct?
Yes.
So it would be important to read emails from him?
Well, we ran our own tests, and our own tests came back with insignificant levels of toxicity. Listen, I'm a busy girl. I'm not about to spend all my time reading all these emails when I already know my results. They came back insignificant. I'm busy running my company. I didn't read the email.
I get that, but if Jerry Langley puts all your research into one page and sends it to you, don't you think it would be important for you to read his emails?
Devin Williams is the man that conducted my tests. Devin Williams is the person that I am listening to, not Jerry Langley. Devin Williams is the one who ran my test and they came back insignificant.
But you are the CEO and
correct.
You listen to all of your employees or else they wouldn't be employed, correct?
I listen to my employees. Not reading an email isn't listening to them. I mean, sometimes I don't read emails. It just happens. I'm busy.
Okay, so it wouldn't be important for you to read an email sent from a guy that puts all your research onto one page and gives it to you?
Objection, Your Honor. This has been asked and answered already.
She didn't. I mean, it was a simple yes or no question, and I believe that Ms. Duncourt did not answer the question. I believe she went into detail about something that was not the question. That's not what I was asking.
I'm going to overrule the objection and allow the witness to answer your question. Go ahead. Ms. Dawson.
I'm not saying it's not important. I listen to everyone in my company and I really do care. I ran my tests and they came back insignificant. At that
So do
point,
you
I did
think-
not feel the need to then go and check in my inbox to see if I had anything else lying around hanging out there. It was insignificant.
Okay. Could you please read the first sentence of paragraph 2?
Sure, for the first time ever, following our lab's June Drupo study, concerns have arisen regarding generalized findings of potential carcinogenic qualities identified in samples produced during a period early in the year.
So if you had read your emails, then you would have known that there was a potential carcinogenic in Drufo.
I did my studies. I trust Devin Williams to run my studies correctly. He ran
I'm
them.
sorry.
They came back insignificant. There was no need to read the email.
But if you did read the email, then you would have known that there was a potential carcinogenic, correct?
Let's say hypothetically, because I did not read it, so this is all hypothetical. Let's say I had, I probably would have run the tests again and gotten my same results. I would have run the tests again. As I said previously, if there were levels of toxicity, it wouldn't have been on the market. Had I read the email, I would have run the tests again, then again, not on the market.
But you didn't run the test again because you didn't read the email, correct?
Because it was unnecessary because I had already ran it once.
So your argument is that you did the test once?
I ran very thorough examination. I did it. It came back insignificant. I feel like I'm repeating myself.
I'm sorry. Can I stop you for a second?
Yes.
My question was if you read the email or if you did the research on Drufo once.
I ran the testing, yes.
So that's correct. You only ran tests once?
Correct.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
No redirect. There won't be any
No.
recross.
No.
The witness is excused. Can the defense call their next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Skylar Weirs to the stand.
Raise your right hand. You swear that testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Will you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
My name is Skylar Weirs. Weirs. W-E-I-R-S.
And do you know the plaintiff?
Yes, I know the plaintiff well.
What is your relationship with the plaintiff?
The plaintiff is my twin.
And what is your reason for being here today?
I'm here simply to defend the validity of Drufo.
And what do you do for a living?
I am an investigative journalist who writes about important issues such as the conflict between individual health and corporations. I conduct research and author my own articles, which are released in prominent magazines and newspapers.
And what do you write your articles about?
I mostly research modern agritech, and this in turn led me to researching and writing about Drufo and its side effects, as well as other subtopics of modern agritech. I did this for the Rationalist magazine, which is a quarterly publication by the Rationalist Society.
Your Honor, at this point, based on Skylar Weirs' extensive experience and publications, under Colorado Rule 702, the defense would like to offer up Skylar Weirs as an expert in the field of modern architect.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to voir dire Skylar Weirs.
All right, go ahead.
So, Skylar Weirs, the magazine that you write for writes about scientific skepticism.
Yes, the Rationalist magazine.
And skepticism means something that is not completely proven or doubted as to the truth.
Yes, that is what skepticism means.
So, your magazine provides scientific articles with not proven facts.
I, as well as writing for the yes, so that's what the Rationalist does, but I'm also a freelance writer and I do research and author my own articles.
Do you have any college education?
I do not.
So you get your information and studies from the internet.
I get my information and studies from sources such as the United States Department of Agriculture and the National Association of State Department of Agriculture, as well as many other valid sources.
I object to Skylar Weirs to be an expert witness due to lack of education, qualification, and knowledge on the topic of his experience.
Response?
I believe that Skylar Weirs is very qualified to become an expert witness, for he has written many prominent articles, and he does a lot of research and with prominent sources.
I'm going to go ahead and admit him as an expert in the areas. What area did you wish to have him admitted as an expert?
The field of modern architect, Your Honor.
You will be admitted as an expert witness in the area of modern architect. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Excuse me, Your Honor. Could I just ask that the witness stay in his area of expertise during the line of questioning?
You will have an opportunity to object to testimony, and we'll wait to hear what the questions are. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And what can you tell us about Drufo's link to cancer?
I can tell you that there's no link between Drufo and cancer. I have spent some time reading publications from various agriculture companies and the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
And what can you tell us about the validity of these publications?
I have confirmed these publications by also reading the research studies referenced in these posts. I use evidence from many proven sources, such as the National Association of State Department of Agriculture. And all my research from these valid sources has led to the conclusion that Drufo does not cause cancer.
What do you think the cause of Dakota's cancer is then?
I believe it's from the harmful chemicals found in fertilizer, but definitely not Drufo. It is from bad leadership from the job.
Objection, Your Honor. I would say that this question is out of the witness's expertise.
Response?
Your Honor, my witness is talking about our agriculture and fertilizer.
All right, I'm going to sustain the objection. I do believe this is outside the area of his research that he has stated he did. It didn't reference the area of the objection, and therefore I'm going to sustain the objection. Move on to something else, please.
I have a quick question. Could you please repeat what Skylar Weir's expertise is?
Skylar Weirs is an expert in modern architect.
Okay.
Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. What makes you support Drufo so strongly?
Drufo is a potentially revolutionary product because it is a safer substitute to currently used fertilizers and pesticides. Drufo's use in fertilizers can reduce the amount of these fertilizers needed for commercial farming and small landscape companies.
And why is it that you support Lush in this case?
Lush is an ethical company that is committed to helping the environment. They donate 10% of their profits towards lessening nitrogen contamination in groundwater. The CEO of Lush, Blake Doncourt, is also an active philanthropist who started a charity to help clean the Gulf of Mexico dead zone.
And Mr. Wheels, in relation to Dakota's diagnosis, when did you begin your research surrounding Drufo?
I wrote an article that was published in the Rationalist magazine questioning the correlation between Drufo and cancer before Dakota was diagnosed.
And what can you tell us about your relationship with your brother?
Though we don't have the typical twin relationship, I love Dakota more than anything, and I wouldn't do anything to hurt her. I hate seeing her in this much pain.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Skylar Weirs, isn't it true that you were assigned to research Drufo as a part of a series from your editor?
Yes, this is true.
And your editor has written articles about irrational beliefs and scientific skepticism.
Yes, that's what the Rationalist magazine writes about.
And during your research, isn't it true that you found that Drufo was a breakthrough for Lush and would cost millions to find an alternative?
It is. Because it's such a revolutionary, once-in-a-generation product, it would cost millions.
Do you think you could make a fertilizer that is truly safe?
I don't think you can make any fertilizer that is truly 100% safe for humans.
Your only real proof that Drufo is not harmful is the fact that you haven't found any studies that talk directly about the effects. Just because you haven't found anything on the topic doesn't mean there's nothing there, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Just because I haven't found the studies, but I can assure you that there are very limited studies out there that do correlate Drufo to cancer.
Drufo is eliminating the amount of nitrogen and other pesticides in its product by using Drufo, correct?
Yes, that's how Drufo works because it is a bonding agent between the fertilizer and the grass, it does limit the nitrogen, and can only be applied about once or twice a year compared to other fertilizers, which are applied 5 to 6 times a year.
But you think that there is a link with other pesticides and cancer more so than a link with Drufo?
Yes, because Lush's products are only applied once to twice a year, and other fertilizers are applied 5 to 6 times. Basic math says that the odds are that there's cancer because of the other fertilizers and pesticides because they're applied more often.
Can I rephrase the question? I'm not asking about the application, but rather the products used in the fertilizer. So do you think that there is a link with other pesticides and their ingredients with cancer more so than a link with cancer and Drufo?
Potentially, my research is mainly surrounding Drufo, so I don't have the expertise in other fertilizers.
And you have grass allergies, correct?
I do have grass allergies.
So the only difference you and Dakota had growing up is that she worked outside with the pesticide, correct?
Obviously, we had different lifestyles, but yes, that is one difference, is that Dakota worked at Haven Landscaping and I did not.
And while you are healthy, she is sick with cancer?
Yes.
Do you have a gambling problem?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Response?
I am trying to lay a foundation of the bias of the witness as their father pays for Dakota rather than Skylar's gambling problem.
Any further response from the defense?
I just don't really see how Dakota or Skylar's gambling problem really has anything to do with Drufo and cancer.
Counsel, can you proffer some information as to where you're going with this questioning?
Yes. So Dakota and Skylar's father pays for Dakota's medical bills, but does not pay for Dakota's gambling debt, and therefore it could lead to a bias for Skylar Weirs.
I'm gonna go ahead and allow the questions. Go ahead.
Okay. Can I repeat the question?
Yes.
Do you have a gambling problem?
I do gamble, yes.
And are the funds from your father that could be helping you with your gambling debt going to Dakota instead?
Yes, obviously the priority in this case is Dakota's health for the Weirs family.
And you believe your father will still help Dakota financially even if the lawsuit isn't successful?
Yes, I do think that, again, like I said, Dakota's health is the #1 priority for our family.
Was it recommended Dakota wear protective gear?
It was recommended on the label, but not by Haven Landscaping.
And those were recommendations, stated as a recommendation rather than a requirement, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe Dakota could have developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma due to past work with fertilizers?
Yes, I do think that it is a very high possibility that his work with fertilizer did cause his lymphoma.
But she recently developed the cancer.
Yes.
And Lush is the only fertilizer that she has been working with in the past 4 years?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is it true that Lush is the only fertilizer to use Drufo?
Drufo is an exclusive product of Lush.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
No redirect, no recross. The witness is excused. Defense, call your next witness. Will the defense call their next witness?
Your Honor, the defense now calls Dr. Devin Williams to the stand.
All right. Dr. Williams, can you raise your right hand? Can you raise your right hand, Dr. Williams? You swear that testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the defense calls, apologies. Good afternoon. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Dr. Devin Williams, Williams.
What do you do for a living, Dr. Williams?
I lead the toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer, and I'm the outgoing chair of the company's ethics committee.
What experience do you have in this field?
I completed my undergraduate and PhD education at Colorado State University in Fort Collins. Furthermore, I completed a specialized post-PhD program in pharmacotoxicology. I've been employed in numerous states and have received certifications in other states, including Wyoming, New Mexico, and Utah. I've been an employee at Lush Fertilizers for the last decade, roughly, and have led the toxicology labs for the past 7 years.
Let the record reflect that opposing counsel has previously been provided with a copy of Exhibit 9. Your Honor, permission to share the screen so the witness may view a copy of Exhibit 9?
Yes.
Co-counsel, can you please share the exhibit? Without going into its contents, can you identify it?
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae.
Is it an authentic copy?
Yes.
Is it accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, seeing as it has been established that this is an accurate and authentic copy, the defense offers Exhibit number 9 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 9 is admitted without objection. Go ahead,
Permission
counsel.
to publish virtually, Your Honor.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Co-counsel, can you please take it off the screen? Your Honor, at this point, based on Dr. Devin Williams' extensive experience and education under Colorado Rule 702, the defense would like to offer up Dr. Devin Williams as an expert in the field of pharmacotoxicology.
Any objection, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Dr. Williams is admitted as an expert in the area of toxopharmacology. Is that correct?
Pharmacotoxicology, Your Honor.
Pharmacotoxicology. I apologize. Thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Moving on, what is your connection to this case?
I was originally hired to fill in as a technician on the Drufo development team. Later, I was promoted to lead the labs to oversee work on the environmental impacts of our products.
Can you please give a description of Drufo and its function?
Effectively, Drufo binds to the ingredients in the fertilizer, and that leads to it binding whatever the product is sprayed on, be it grass or any other plants. This means that fertilizer is utilized and less washes off into the soil, which then interrupts the process of eutrophication from the very start itself. I can give you a more technical explanation, but that would have to include words such as coagulated hydroxylapatite and phosphate precipitate.
What are your thoughts on reports and studies that argue that non-Hodgkin lymphoma is a prominent side effect of continued exposure to Drufo?
There is a lack of valid data that non-Hodgkin lymphoma is a prominent side effect of continued exposure to Drufo. At Lush, we analyzed data to understand whether users of fertilizers containing Drufo experienced an elevated risk of developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma, in contrast to users of other fertilizers. And in that respect, I am more than content to say that we found no such evidence.
So then, what is your opinion on the study conducted by Dr. Casey Rogers on the correlation between exposure to Drufo and non-Hodgkin lymphoma?
I believe that the study by Dr. Rogers cannot be given much weight due to the fact that his study purportedly looked at the exposure to Drufo for farm laborers versus casual gardeners versus people who do not participate in any action relating to these fields. The lifestyles of these three groups are entirely different, meaning there could be a plethora of confounding variables that could have affected his results. Simply put, Dr. Rogers attempted to juxtapose apples and oranges. There's just so much more I could say.
How would you elaborate?
Well, furthermore, his study has not been peer-reviewed, and the data he found has not been in any similar studies, which indicate that his results are a fluke and are likely biased considering his entire career has been dedicated to finding harms from continued exposure to Drufo. A professor of mine at CSU once said, when someone finds exactly what they set out to find, always question their results.
So what affects the Drufo display that led to its ban in the EU?
Drufo was banned in the EU due to the fact that under the EU's nitrate directive, no new fertilizers may be utilized that contribute more than incidental nitrate accumulation in lab tests. What this means is that although Drufo significantly reduces the number of nitrates that accumulate, it still has nitrogen in it. And so if you were to pour some into a petri dish and just the right bacteria, it would provide you with just as many nitrates as any other fertilizer.
So what exactly are you saying?
Effectively, the EU bureaucracy banned Drufo because the results provided in unrealistic lab conditions show that Drufo violates the nitrate directive. In fact, this is why Drufo isn't a part of the French label and isn't an ingredient in the products distributed by Lush in the EU.
Could you please expand on this?
Simply put, it is easier to make fertilizer without Drufo and to sell that in Europe, even though it isn't the most environmentally friendly action to take. In addition, Lush was a relatively new company, and we simply couldn't fight the decision of the EU with our limited resources at the time.
Okay, and finally, do you have any financial incentive for testifying in this case today?
In the interest of full disclosure, yes. As an employee of Lush Fertilizer, I do stand to benefit from my testimony in this case, if Lush were to be acquitted. However, no part of my testimony today has been biased in any way whatsoever. It has simply been based on scientific facts and findings. I would also like to express my sincere sympathies to Dakota Weirs and his family, as non-Hodgkin lymphoma is an extremely difficult illness to battle. And I would like to once again state that Drufo does not elevate the risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and that Lush Fertilizer was not negligent in the development of its product in any stage whatsoever. The development of Drufo is revolutionary for our environment, and I hope that it will continue to be able to serve that noble purpose.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes. Dr. Devin Williams, you've worked at Lush Fertilizer for 10 years.
Yes, that is correct.
Were you first hired there as a lab technician?
Yes, I was.
When you were promoted to lead the labs, was it to oversee work on environmental impacts?
Yes.
And your boss also put you in charge of keeping Drufo products industry-leading, cost-effective, and environmentally aware?
Yes, with an emphasis on being environmentally friendly. That is the revolutionary ability of Drufo.
Is the goal of Drufo to decrease the nitrate runoff into bodies of water?
Well, we have many objectives in our company, but that is one of them.
And in lab conditions, where the effectiveness is tested, did the product demonstrate that?
The product demonstrated that it does have nitrogen in it. As I explained earlier, this is why it is banned in the EU, because in these unrealistic lab conditions, it does still show that it has nitrogen in the product.
I see. Further questions, Your Honor?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, the witness is excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And any other witnesses for the defense?
The defense rests its case, Your Honor.
All right, and are the parties prepared to go to closing statements at this time?
Yes, Your
Yes,
Honor.
Your Honor.
All right, plaintiff's closing statement, please. And the court is aware that the plaintiffs have asked at the beginning of the case to reserve any time that they do not use on their closing. So please be sure to instruct the court when you've completed how much time you have left for rebuttal, okay? Go ahead, counsel, with closing.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your undivided attention. I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Repeat what?
Never mind, I'll go. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for your undivided attention on a case such as important as this one. When dealing with something that can cause both harm to the environment and the people living in it, it is important to be considerate and careful when coming to a decision. Today, you've heard from a variety of witnesses. From the plaintiff, you heard from Dakota Weirs, an ill girl with no hope of recovery, hoping that the company and its product that wronged her is held accountable. You've heard from Carson Durst, a scorned employee whose boss wouldn't listen to her when she came to her with complaints about bias amongst other employees. And you heard from Dr. Casey Rogers, a teacher and researcher new to court, hoping to lend her expertise and services for the greater good. Then, from the defense, you heard from Blake Doncourt, Lush Fertilizer's CEO herself, a woman who cares about the cheapest manufacturing prices, a woman who doesn't mind going around the rules if it helps her a little bit, a woman who cares more about her trade secrets than her employees. Then you heard from Skylar Weirs, an investigative journalist and Dakota's twin himself. He's testifying today because he believes that Lush Fertilizer and its product Drufo is totally safe. It's something he's researched extensively. He's also researched and written about UFOs, anti-vax culture, flat earth theories, and chemtrails. Finally, you heard from Dr. Devin Williams, an expert in multiple fields of toxicology who has worked at Lush Fertilizer for almost a decade and is happy to follow the instructions of the company. My client is only 20 years old. With so much life ahead of her, she has recently lost the ability to complete basic tasks without feeling the aches and pains of the illness that is recently taking over her life. She is no longer able to help out the less fortunate in her community, which is a loss that will be severely missed. She is also no longer able to play the piano, one of the only connections remaining that she has with her grandfather, who passed away many years ago when she was only a young girl. Additionally, she had to turn down a full ride scholarship to Juilliard, which is the most prestigious music school in the country. While Juilliard has allowed her to defer her scholarship for up to 2 years, and her doctor still believes that she is capable of making a recovery, Miss Weirs does not believe that she will ever be able to return to her life as it was before. This is why my client has taken this matter to court today, to not only get justice for herself, but to make sure that Lush Fertilizer is stopped before this happens to anyone else. Today, I ask that you consider everything you've learned when coming to a verdict. I also ask that you hold this company, its CEO, and its dangerous products accountable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead, defense, with your closing statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Lush Fertilizers has been falsely accused of practicing negligence in the development and distribution of their acclaimed and revolutionary fertilizers containing Drufo. Once again, I remind you, accusations don't equal truth. Don't reward misinformation. The evidence has shown that while Dakota Weir's circumstances are unfortunate, Lush Fertilizers' action played no role in their occurrence. In this trial today, the plaintiff had to prove to you, the jury, by preponderance of evidence that Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin lymphoma was a consequence of continued exposure to Drufo. This meant that the plaintiff had to prove that there was more than a 50% chance that continued exposure to Drufo was the cause of Dakota Weir's circumstances. As witnesses testified and evidence was submitted, it became clear that Lush Fertilizers' practices were more than enough and that they are not to blame for Dakota Weir's circumstances. First, Dakota Weirs testified that she failed to undertake safety precautions that were clearly labeled on every Lush Fertilizers product containing Drufo. One could argue that Dakota Weirs was negligent in her utilization of Lush Fertilizers products, and that resulted in her being diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma. In addition to that, Ms. Weirs told us that she worked with numerous fertilizers, which warned her not to use them indoors, yet she failed to heed that advice. There's a clear pattern that was established here. Ms. Weirs was negligent in her actions, and now that she is bearing the brunt of her mistakes, she's looking to accuse Lush Fertilizers. Ms. Durst was then called to the stand, where she admitted that she received a job at Lush Fertilizers while exploiting her friendship with Ms. Donkowitz's child. Following her issues at Lush Fertilizers and her being fired from Lush, she violated a non-compete agreement by working for Terra Greenery. Moving on to the plaintiff's expert witness, Dr. Casey Rogers was called upon, and Dr. Rogers herself stated in her direct examination that wearing a PPE kit and a mask would have reduced any ill effects. Those are the same actions that Dakota Weirs failed to take. Moving on to the defense witnesses, first, Blake Doncourt discussed the steps taken by Lush and the data behind those, as well as the fact that Lush did not neglect any parts of the process. Not only was Ms. Doncourt honest, but she was open and willing to cooperate. Are those really the behaviors of a guilty party? One of the key things focused on was Lush Fertilizers' choice to not bake their product, which would have reduced toxicants. I must remind you, the jury, that it is believed that the presence of nitrogen is what causes Drufo. Yet nitrogen is not a toxicant. So would baking the product have truly made a difference? I think not. In addition, during Ms. Doncourt's cross, the plaintiff attempted to use a hypothetical situation to paint Ms. Doncourt in a negative light. However, is a hypothetical scenario truly an accurate way to assess Lush Fertilizers' actions? Moving on to the testimony of Skylar Weirs, who's the plaintiff's very own twin, Skylar informed us about studies regarding the effects of Drufo and his passion for writing, as well as the articles he wrote for The Rationalist. The plaintiff aimed to paint Mr. Weirs as someone doing this purely for money due to his gambling debts. Yet does one mistake define who a person is or what they value? Finally, Dr. Devin Williams discussed Dr. Casey Rogers' study and the lack of its validity in this scenario, as well as the findings of studies conducted by Lush Fertilizers in-house. This is a civil case, and so the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs, must prove their case by preponderance of the evidence. Rather than Drufo, Dakota Weirs' non-Hodgkin lymphoma was caused by other circumstances. And because of these unfortunate circumstances and poor research by certain bad actors, Lush Fertilizers has been falsely accused. We have shown that Lush undertook all necessary measures and that Dakota Weirs was a negligent one. For these reasons, we ask you to return a verdict in favor of Lush Fertilizers. Thank you.
Rebuttal.
Yes. While the defense has brought up many interesting points, I'd like to remind you that Ms. Weirs chose not to wear any protective equipment because on the packaging it listed it as required. not mandatory. Additionally, they had a chance to go over and get rid of the possible carcinogens in their product, but because of their boss's, Blake Doncourt's, laziness and inability to look through her emails, they did not catch that and were not able to resolve that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, councils. I'm going to allow the panelists an opportunity now to have about a minute to be able to put their scores together, and then we'll address what we want to talk about the case, okay? But I first want to tell you all thank you very much for your being in the competition. You all did a very exceptional job. I was so impressed. And I want to thank you for that. It was a pleasure to listen to you all. When the panelists are ready, please let me know by coming on the screen. Thank you. Do we have all? I think we're waiting on one last panelist, or do we have everybody? All right, I think do we have everybody now?
Sorry, technical difficulties.
No, no worries. And did everybody get their documents submitted?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And so first, I started by saying already that I was so impressed and I'm so appreciative of teams and how they performed. I want to tell you I'm a magistrate in Arapahoe County, and I hear matters on a daily basis. I listen to lawyers. I also listen to non-lawyers and pro se matters. And you all did such a great job. The witnesses I brought a smile to my face. I was enjoying their testimony, and I'm going to leave it up to the panelists to tell you more about what they thought. But I want to tell you, I was so impressed and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So please, why don't we start with Miss Barbara Johnson first, and then, or Barbara Johnson Stern first. Could you take a moment to tell the panelists what your thoughts were?
Sure. I absolutely agree with His Honor. I thought you guys all did really, really well. It was a pleasure to watch all of you. And I know that at this point in the competition, you are looking for a little bit of critical feedback. It's very difficult to find anything. I think you guys you've got a really good approach. I thought everybody was very thorough. I loved the voir dire. Particularly of the journalist. That voir dire was very good, as well as, I think there were 2 voir dires. Sorry, my notes are a little skewed. I thought all the witnesses were very credible and easy to follow and really fit the sort of the personalities of what you might expect from each one of you. So really great job there. I thought the openings and closings were both very good. So I don't read the problem or the case before I judge. I read all the instructions and those kinds of things. But so what I really found today that you guys did very well was both of you let me know what I was going to hear, and you both gave a great sort of introduction into why we're really here. You heard this is a story. Those are great. Those were really good. Closings were also really good. I thought you guys did a great job keeping your themes consistent. And again, I am hard pressed to find anything that you guys could do any better. So sorry about that. You guys are just good. Very good. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Russell Johnson, please, can we hear from you next?
Thank you, Your Honor, and congratulations everyone on another great round. This was really just a joy to watch. I've been judging mock trial for, I guess, the last 6 years now. This was a great round. Now, I'm an attorney with the State Attorney General's office. I do a mix of litigation and general counsel work. So in fact, I never appear in front of a jury. So I can only imagine how difficult this was for all of you to do it today with us. I agree with all the comments. It was a very strong round. I do have a couple thoughts on, things to think about that are sometimes in some ways technical. So one thing to think about is with exhibits, when you're going to put them up, particularly when you're in this format, how are they going to look on the screen? Are they going to be legible by the folks who are trying to read them? Because some of them came up a little small. And so I knew it was there and I knew it was a CV because you told me it was a CV, but I didn't really have a chance to take a look at it myself and to be able to read it myself. And so, testing out the technology to make sure things are showing up the way you want them to, I think it can be a helpful thing to do just to kind of refine the presentation a little bit. Thematically, I thought you both had strong themes. I would have liked to, when you're starting your theme, make sure you're ending with your theme. It felt like there were some opportunities there that maybe were missed, but I certainly knew what your themes were, and that wasn't an issue. It's just I think there were some opportunities there you could have taken more with. One thing to think about is, and I'm going to one thought on the argument for plaintiff, one for defense. On the plaintiff side, one thing to think about is how much you focus on the sympathy of your client versus the actual liability of the company. She's super sympathetic, right? I mean, this is horrible. But you've got to convince me more that not just that she's really been injured, but that this company's responsible for it. And I think that is an area where there could have been more focus and more drawing out the evidence to make it clear to me why I shouldn't just feel bad for her, but why I should feel like this company was responsible for it and I should hold them responsible for it and vote in your favor. And then, thing on the defense side, there is this argument about PPE and whether she was wearing long sleeves or doing all the things she needed to do. There's an underlying that suggests, though, that the product is harmful. Like, she should have been wearing that because by not wearing it, she got cancer. And so think about how much you want to emphasize the PPE side of things, because that can cut in a very different way if you've got folks who pick up on that and then, can really come after you for it in rebuttal. I mean, there's a reason why that's recommended, right? It's because there's something wrong here. This is not a safe product. And so slamming her for not wearing long sleeves while doing yard work, essentially with fertilizer, that could be a risky strategy. And so make sure you think about that and how much you want to emphasize that over other pieces of your case, which are really strong. I also want to speak quickly to witnesses. I know we don't want to be here forever on comments, but witnesses, you were awesome. Since a lot of us are attorneys who judge these, we tend to focus on the attorney stuff, and it's really hard, but the witnesses were fantastic. And I mean, Manon, your corporate shill act was really great. Yep. I think within the first two lines, I hated you as like the unthinking CEO, but it was fantastic. I mean, it was a great play of the character. And all the witnesses all around did a fantastic job. Really loved it.
I just want to say I agree with that. I so enjoyed the witnesses. And finally, can we hear from Greg Rich? Greg, please.
All right. Thank you, Judge. My name is Greg Rich. I'm a partner with the law firm of Coombe, Curry, Rich, and Jarvis, where we do civil litigation. I'm a former colleague of Judge Farrow's. We worked together at one point in the past before we both went different directions. I just want to congratulate you all. This is the third round I've judged this weekend, twice as the presiding judge, in fact, and once now as the scoring panelist. And I just want to say this was a very good job. Some general notes. For your themes, make sure you want to have a bumper sticker theme, something that, think of like political messages that will fit on a bumper sticker. You want to use something like that so that it's memorable, catchy, and you want to repeat it all the way through. Use it in your examinations, not just your opening and your closing, but use it in your examinations as well as much as possible. You've been working on this problem. I can talk real good. You've been working on this problem for a while now. Try to make sure that you are off notes as much as possible. looking at the camera and, just trying to be sure that you're making eye contact. Obviously, when you're doing it in person, it's easier to make eye contact, but you want to try and make eye contact with the camera as much as possible. On direct examinations, I saw some good use of looping, where you're using the answer just given for the next question. It's a good technique, especially when you want to emphasize that last answer. And so there were some good examples of that, both on the direct and cross-examination for that matter. There was an objection at one point to compound. And I think, Tanisha, you were the one asking the question and you made a good point. No, I'm just reiterating what they said to set up the next question. And that's exactly right. So that was a good response to that objection. You also had an interesting use of Exhibit 3. Personally, I think Exhibit 3 is hearsay and shouldn't come in, but that's a different issue. But usually it's brought in by the plaintiff. Here it was brought in by the defense, and I hadn't seen that before. So that was pretty interesting. There were some good objections to compound questions. And yeah, you got to be careful of that. This happened and this happened, right? No, I can't do that. Short declarative questions, one question at a time. That's a big issue on cross-examination because the witnesses don't know what you're asking, and it kind of opens the door for them. And so throughout on cross-examination, remember, cross-examination is about you. You are testifying and getting the witness to agree with you, right? You don't want them, being able to go on their own and start going into some sort of monologue. On the other hand, the directs were really good about asking those open-ended questions. My dog agrees with you, apparently. But you want to have those open-ended questions, and everybody was doing a really good job of that. Whitney, on the when you were being questioned about what your motivation was, I thought that was a great answer. Your motivation was helping people. That was what you were gaining. So that was really good. Manon, I thought you were two different people on the stand today. During direct examination, you were very engaging, and then when Chanel was trying to direct you, you turned into a different person. You were getting combative, and it was really interesting to see that change. I wasn't offended by it, by the way, but it was interesting. A couple of ideas for a couple of the witnesses. So one of the issues was with Blake Donacourt, talking about how all these charitable donations. Somehow you're a good person because you're giving charitable donations. The Nobel Prize is named after the inventor of what? Dynamite, right? So, just because you do something good doesn't necessarily negate that you've done something bad. So, that'd be maybe something that somebody could use. And then, because my dog's getting restless, I'll close with this. On Skylar Weirs, I've been just going through this problem and hearing people talk. If the plaintiff wins, that means the family has more money, which means Skylar Weirs' dad can cover his gambling debts. So Skylar's actually testifying against their own interest here. Tanisha, you seem to be thinking that was something that you came up with before, maybe. But yeah, so maybe that's something that you could incorporate into your performances going forward, because I think you guys both have a good chance to go forward. And so thank you for the performances, and good luck in your final round this weekend.
Thank you to all the panelists. I think the commentary was excellent. I have nothing to add, except that you all did such a great job. And honestly, inside, I try to keep my demeanor as a judicial officer, but I was just smiling inside because I thought it was so entertaining how you all handled yourselves. And I really liked the combative nature of the CEO, but on the cross was so smooth on her acting. Like, she was acting and you just took her responses and went with them. You did an excellent job. I really like that. In fact, it was a highlight of the performance, I would say, because of that. So thank you so much. Good luck to all of you. And I'm sure that you all are going to be great lawyers at some point. So that's awesome. Take care.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
I think.